Welcome to the GeoTalk podcast, where we discuss civil, environmental, and geotechnical engineering, geosynthetics, and other issues related to infrastructure. I'm Chris Kelsey, editor of geosynthetica.net. My colleague Elizabeth Peggs, Geosynthetica's director, sat down with engineer Daniel Medina to discuss the rather large and immensely important topic of low-impact development and the challenge in creating what he calls a more water-centric infrastructure. It's particularly challenging in a world with substantial inequalities between cities and countries, disparities that can impact how a community prioritizes development and long-term planning.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Peggs. Welcome to the GeoTalk podcast. I'm here with Mr. Daniel Medina of Limnotech out of the Washington, D.C. area. He is a senior consulting engineer with that company and has done an extensive amount of work on LID programming, development, design, low-impact development, for those of us who aren't familiar with the acronym. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Happy to be here.
Maybe we could just start off for the listeners and explain what LID is. What is low impact development?
Right. So LID, low impact development, goes by many different names depending on the country. In the UK, it's called SUDS, Sustainable Urban Drainage Systems. In Australia and New Zealand, it's called water-centric urban design, which in addition to stormwater has a wastewater component as well. In the US, there's also various terms like environmental site design. They're all essentially the same thing, but it really, if I have to summarize it in one word, in one sentence, is to make the land design water-centric. So looking at the water features, the assets that that a site has, and try to mold the development of the site to those features so that we're not going against nature, but working with nature.
Excellent. And you've been working on these designs and developing these programs since the early 90s. Can you tell us a little bit about the successes of the program, and other than the sort of obvious idea that working with nature is better than working against it, what do you have some metrics or some ways to quantify success with low impact development? Yeah,
so LID has proven in many cases, many study cases, that it can save money to developers. So there's a resistance to LID in some circles because new things always tend to cost more money.
Sure.
But right now, we have so many years of experience in research and application to know that you could save up to 50% of your drainage costs in a green site development if you start with low impact development. So that means less water that you have to manage. It means less landscape that you have to rebuild because you destroyed the all established landscape. Fewer linear feet of pipe, smaller detention facilities if you have to have detention. Sometimes you don't have any detention facilities. Everything goes into the ground or into the atmosphere as evapotranspiration. So that's one statistic that developers and planners should think about, is you could save money in these circumstances. It doesn't represent savings all the time. For example, in a city, it's very expensive to apply LID when everything is already built out because everything is there.
Sure.
So you stick a shovel in the ground and you're going to find fiber optic, you're going to find water pipes, sewer pipes, and things that could be hundreds of years old. Like in cities like Philadelphia and New York. So it doesn't mean that it's impossible. It means it's not as cost effective because you're doing it after the fact. You're essentially correcting a mistake. It's like triple bypass surgery, right? It's easier for you not to smoke than have to face the knife at the surgeon's table.
Right.
So it's the same thing. If we're going to reestablish this hydrology, it's going to cost us more effort in an urban environment.
Retrofitting is always expensive.
Yes.
So we know that there's a great opportunity to not only save money, but in the long run, do something that's better for the planet as well, right? It's working with the naturally occurring systems for an improved result. So one of the things that you and I started talking about earlier, and I think is very interesting, is the challenge for developing countries to employ these strategies as they're building. And you indicated to me that there were some hesitations and there's some challenges specific to that environment. What do you think is causing that hesitation and those challenges?
Yeah. Well, in the developing world, the priorities are different from the industrialized world. So there's many people who don't have access to clean water or sanitation, basic services. So when we show up with green technology, it's almost like I got bigger problems to solve before I start worrying about making things look pretty and green.
Right.
And it's a challenge because those priorities are real. People are sick because they don't have good water sources or a roof over their heads. But we have the opportunity to leapfrog the gap that has been created between taking care of sanitation and later take care of stormwater. That's what we did in the U.S. and Canada. We said, okay, we got to put wastewater treatment plants first. And then we find out that, okay, they're not doing everything that we need them to do. So now we look at non-point source pollution and say, okay, this was also a big concern. Let's address it. So we've had decades in between wastewater treatment application and stormwater treatment application. In the developing world, we can short circuit that and say, hey, we've learned these lessons and we can actually look at water as one water. There's no such thing as flood water and stormwater and drinking water. It's all the same water. It comes from the sky. And they're all connected, right? If you need water for a water treatment plant and stormwater is making it dirty before it gets to the intake, well, you're going to spend more money in treatment,
cleaning it,
right? So there's a connection there. Now, stormwater becomes flood water. So if you prevent stormwater from happening, you're going to solve at least partially some of the problems with flood waters. So that's, even though that's the challenge that we have these priorities, green technologies can actually come in to help. Another example is probably 75% of the population will be urban by the year 2050, all over the world. And in the developing world, these cities are going to grow sometimes in unpredictable manners. People just show up, right? Because there's more opportunities in the city. Well, even if you have a water-rich country, people could be suffering from lack of water because the infrastructure to take that clean water to those cities that are being built many times as informal settlements is not going to be there. The dollars are not going to be there to pay for that infrastructure. So a technology like rainwater harvesting shows up as a possibility, at least in the interim, to be able to bring clean water, reasonably clean water, to people who otherwise wouldn't have any chance to get it in those urban situations.
Excellent. So what I'm hearing is in developing countries, we have an opportunity to take sort of a holistic approach because of all of the years of learning and development that have gone on in some of the cases where retrofitting is more difficult. And so if you had the opportunity to give advice to the developing countries, what would you acknowledge as some of the higher priorities? Where do they even start? It's kind of mind-boggling. It's just so big, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of big problems in the developing world, especially around cities. And there's very talented people, very talented professionals, scientists, engineers, planners, all over the developing world. As far as knowledge is concerned, we're not lacking knowledge. We know what needs to be done. We are familiar with the research. We've done a lot of the research ourselves in universities in Latin America, and Africa, and Asia. So it's not a lack of knowledge. It's really a mechanism to implement them. And there are two components to that. One is money, of course. These things cost money, and many countries are struggling economically. So all the priorities are in the forefront, right?
But correct me if I'm wrong. You just told me that if we did this approach, there can be a huge drainage savings. There are other tangible benefits. So if I'm a country with limited resources,
right,
and I have an opportunity to make it my resources go twice as far, it seems like this might be something worth stopping to look at.
Correct. And that's exactly the point. We have the knowledge, and we know that we can save money by looking at water issues holistically. So that is the first realization. We have to be able to find the synergies in all those water sectors to be able to put them together in a package. Now, the basic accounting unit for that is the watershed. So we should look at the problems on a watershed basis.
Okay.
Unfortunately, many decisions in the developing world are political. So if somebody wants a treatment plant in their municipality, then there's a political favor to return, then that's what gets built, not what makes the most sense from the technology point of view.
And I'm just even going to go here. Sometimes the politics aren't even, I think, as much a favor as, oh my gosh, we have a critical mass of people here who need employment. Let's put it here, right? I don't want to vilify politics altogether. There are other reasons, social and economic reasons, that things are selected, and those aren't always the right reasons. They might feel like the right reasons to make a choice at that time, but maybe there are scientific reasons that also need some consideration.
And that's the problem, right? If you have a city of 4 million people upstream from a municipality that has a need for clean water, but you find out from the technical point of view that it doesn't matter what you do in this municipality. The 4 million person city here controls the level of pollutions that you're going to have there. Then that's not a good investment, right? We have to figure out how we're going to do things upstream so that everybody can benefit. And where are the investments that need to be made? So that's probably one guiding principle is let's look at things holistically on a watershed basis, because that is the accounting unit that we use in the water sector, and figure out what makes the most sense.
That sounds like a very reasonable approach. if we can find a way to take it.
Indeed.
So fantastic. Thank you very much for your time today. Any other closing thoughts before we sign off?
No, well, I just want to say it's great to be here. And I have to say there's many exciting things happening in the developing world. This effect of leapfrogging, being able to learn from what has happened in other countries and avoid those mistakes.
Right.
That is a huge economic and technical incentive for the developing world to just do things from the start with boldness. And let's just do this because we know that it's the best thing in the long run.
Well, and let's go back to that first comment that you had, which is the clean slate is there, right? You have the opportunity to not need to retrofit things, to be able to learn from the valuable wisdom of the industry that's been working on this for 30 years, and do it right the first time.
Indeed.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to be here.
Thanks we'll follow up with you again soon, I'm sure. Thanks so much.
You can learn more about LimnoTech's advanced work in low-impact development at www.limno.com. That's LIMNO.com. Also, we've got additional links for you on Geosynthetica. Visit geosynthetica.net and click on the Media tab for podcast links, contacts, and resources affiliated with each episode of GeoTalk. Thanks for listening.